Welcome to Farm Charm Chic. I'm Emily. For today's episode, I have gathered together some of my favorite neutral Christmas DIYs for you. If you like that neutral feeling for Christmas or that natural feeling as well, I've got you covered. I have some beautiful DIYs to share with you. If you like crafting, DIYs, dupes, hacks, thrift flips, or just creating in general, I would love if you would consider subscribing. If you do like any of today's projects, remember to hit that thumbs up. Let's go make some DIYs. I've been seeing these windows a lot more at Dollar Tree. I keep hoping that they bring more and more different styles of them out because they're so fun to do DIYs with. This one is just kind of like a chipboard type material. In the springtime, I've seen like the plastic, almost like a frame type material, and they've had like the little words in the center of them. This is nice because it doesn't have any words in the middle. I don't have any glue I have to remove or anything. It just has that little sign at the bottom, which I am going to cover up. These tree ornaments all came from Hobby Lobby. The two white ones came in a pack of like 4 for just a couple of dollars, and the other one came from just the ornament section. But Dollar Tree does have the wooden cutout ones that you could easily use for this if you could find them. I just haven't been able to find any of those yet this year. Now, I have this wreath that came off of a garland that I had bought so I could cut all the little wreaths off of it. And but you could easily use, I showed you those little evergreen picks from Dollar Tree. You could use those to use for the wreath instead. Now, I'm just gluing those trees down. If you wanted to paint these a green color, or you wanted to put some scrapbook paper or something on them to give it a little bit more visual interest, go ahead and do that. Do what you have, what works for you. I just wanted this to kind of have more of a neutral color. I really love how this turns out, but I just glue those two on the side there so they're kind of covering that sign up there on the bottom. And then I'm just going to glue this in the middle. So I'm just kind of eyeballing where I want it to sit. And I do want this window to stand. So when I glue it on, I will kind of stand it up to make sure that all of the trees are flat and it's not going to be like front heavy and flip it over. And you can kind of see me doing that here. And then the one ornament does have the hole in the top, and I will cover that up with a cute little bow. Now I'm just showing you here, if you wanted to glue some tumbling tower blocks onto the back to help that stand up, that would be an option for you, but I end up doing something else, but just showing you how that looks if you want to do that. Now look how cute that little wreath looks on this cute little window there. I got some buffalo check ribbon. I stuck with that neutral kind of farmhouse palette, and I just tied that in a little shoestring bow and put that right over the top of that. And I thought it would be fun to tie the wreath in with another bow as well. I do have a commenter every once in a while that asks me if I have to attach a bow to everything. Yes, I do. It's me. Do what works for you. If some berries would be really cute glued around that wreath, leave it plain, do a twine bow, whatever is your style, go ahead and do that. So I'm just gluing that wreath on there because I thought that looked really, really cute. And then I have this little riser that I made in one of my tiered tray videos. It's just a coaster with some little beads on the bottom of it for some little feet. And I'm going to fix this to the back of this because I want to use it to have a candle. Now you could easily use one of these signs that like from Dollar Tree or Hobby Lobby. If you don't want to make a riser, go ahead and paint it up and glue it onto the back and it's going to work just fine. You could even just put a candle behind it, and I'm just showing you here the coaster. These came from Hobby Lobby, and I just put some plaster over the front of it to paint it. If you would like to do a candle just behind it, but I wanted the candle raised a little bit. But I set that coaster down and I put one of my favorite candles from Amazon, which I'll link below. These are just battery operated candles, and I just thought this was a darling little window with that little light shining behind it. This is going to be so elegant and beautiful, and not only is it great for Christmas, but it's going to be perfect for all winter long. I found this bag of potpourri at Hobby Lobby, and it had the most beautiful smell. It's called like gilded pine, it looks like there, but it had such a wonderful smell to it. And as I was looking at it, I noticed that it was primarily pine cones and that it had a few other little embellishment pieces here. And I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do with this, but as I was opening this and looking at it, I was so excited with all the pieces in here that you could use to do projects with and not have to just use it as a bowl of potpourri. It's kind of like a bowl filler type. So you get like that little wood slice in there. There's like a little pear that's in there, all these other little pieces, but I'm mainly wanting to use the pine cones for this project that I'm going to do. So I just take everything out and set it all in categories so I know exactly what I'm working with. Now this is just a styrofoam ball, and I'm going to make a kissing ball. And make sure that when you make this, that you want to have a smaller size styrofoam ball because they get big quick and you don't want it to be overly big. Now I'm just taking some of the jute twine from Walmart that's thicker, not quite a rope, but it is thicker because that's what we're going to use to hang this with. So this is what I start with. I find where I want the top of my kissing ball to be, and as you saw, I just poke a hole in it with my scissors, and I'm just putting some glue in there, and then I am going to stick this down the jute with the knot and push that down in. And you just want to be careful because, you know, with hot glue and styrofoam, it does create a little bit of a reaction. So you just want to be careful as you're doing this. But you do really, I personally feel like the hot glue is necessary to kind of get that immediate hold and have a filler in the holes that you're creating. Now I'm going to start with putting the white pine cones on because I had less of those and I really wanted to have a nice symmetrical look to this. So I'm just using a little bit of Beacon's glue that's going to give you more of a permanent hold there with a little bit of hot glue in the middle that'll give you kind of that instant hold. That was the mixture that I used. If you know something better or you have another method that you like using, definitely do that. But I'm just starting to place these kind of in a symmetrical way from the top. So I start with a couple pine cones on the side. I go twist it around and do the other sides, and then I also do like another one on the bottom, just trying to space these pretty evenly at this point as a good starting point. And then after I get all of the white ones on that I want, I move on to just my plain pine cones. But I would say, I don't even know how many pine cones I end up putting on here, but a fair amount. I don't cover the entire thing. You'll see I put some greenery and everything in here, but you can kind of see it's looking almost like a piñata or something at this point. But it really is just kind of spacing them, looking where there's a hole, going, oh, I could put another little pine cone here. But at this point, I wanted to start adding some greenery. So I have these little picks. I got these. They ended up being like $1 from Hobby Lobby. And I just cut all of the little pieces off. And I end up using each little piece, even the little holly leaves. I really wanted this to look so full and beautiful. I've seen these kissing balls go for lots of money, and so it was really fun to create my own. And not to mention, you guys, this potpourri smells fantastic. And even my kids came in when I was making this, and they were like, what smells so good? And so when I hang this kissing ball, I'm going to hang it from my light in my entryway. It's going to make it smell so beautiful. It's just a different way to have potpourri that's not quite so obvious or sitting in a bowl. It's just kind of a fun thing to work with. Now I have this is boxwood that I'm putting in here, and I had a lot of it, so I started with that, and I just poke a little hole with a dowel. I put a little hot glue down in the hole, and then I stick in each little sprig. And that is how I attach all of the greenery. So all of the greenery that I add is the same method here. I take my little dowel, I poke a hole in there, I put some hot glue in, and it will kind of start to bubble a little bit. And then I will just take my piece that I have and stick it right down in and hold it for a second, so that way it affixes and kind of gets that hold to it. Now, I really love this greenery that I have here. It came from Hobby Lobby, and I don't know what it's called. I don't know if it's like a juniper almost, but when I held it up, I realized that I didn't like the way that it was shaped, or not shaped, but the way that it was sitting. I wanted it to flow downward rather than be sticking out. So just keep that in mind. Hold up your kissing ball every once in a while and see how everything's falling or flowing. Twist it around and look at it from every angle just to make sure you're filling in any gaps. And I work with each individual piece, like I'll do one type of greenery and finish all of that before I move on to the next one. That way I make sure that I get it spread evenly around the entire ball. And I chose kind of a medium sized, I don't even know what size of styrofoam ball this is, but I easily could have gone one smaller and it still would have ended up being pretty big, because they end up being a lot larger than your center ball is. And then I moved on to another type of greenery here, and same thing. And I just kind of twist it, look at where there needs to be something, how far have I spaced it from the last piece. And I am purposely and intentionally leaving the very top of this blank, because I do want to put some bows or ribbon on the top of it, and then I'll go back in and fill that in. So as I'm doing this, you'll be able to see that I left the top open. Now I just want to point out that over on the left hand side of my screen, I bought a wreath that had some greenery that I really liked. So don't be afraid if you can't find a pick to grab a wreath, and you can just see I'm just pulling the greenery right off of that to use. It had this really shimmery sparkle to it, which I really liked, and it was a different texture. But I couldn't find anything in a pick with it, and I found the wreath and went, oh, I really want this in a pick, and then thought, well, why can't I take it off the wreath? So try that if you can't find exactly what you're looking for. Don't be afraid to buy a wreath just to disassemble it. Now I'm putting in kind of like your more traditional artificial Christmas tree boughs or branches, and that actually takes up quite a lot of space because of how just naturally how that is full. And so when I stick that in, I'm starting to see the styrofoam disappear, and you can see that the more greenery is taking hold and that it really is starting to all come together. The trick you want to remember when you're making these is that you want to have a lot of different textures and a lot of different shapes and colors of your greenery, and you could easily add some florals into here if you want to bring some color in. I think some like red berries or even those dark burgundy berries would look beautiful, some white ones. If you wanted to bring in some white poinsettias, anything like that, silk flowers, anything would look beautiful in this. So this is another thing that you can kind of make your own, just depending on what you have in your stash, what your style is, the look you're going for. I typically add a lot of red berries to my projects because I really do love bringing in that red tone at Christmas. But this year, so far, I'm really loving this kind of woodsy, the natural tones. Now it came with, I think these are chestnuts, but you guys, I don't really even know for sure. So if they're not, I don't know, but I add those in, and I really loved the brown tone that it brings in. And that was just part of that potpourri. Now, once you're done kind of with all of your greenery and you're want to start covering up the rest of that styrofoam, what I'm doing here is I'm pulling things back so it exposes the styrofoam you can see. I'll drop some hot glue down in there, and then I'm using some reindeer moss, and I just get this at Dollar Tree, but you can get it at any craft store. And using my dowel, I just tuck that down in to cover up any of the styrofoam that's exposed so you don't see that. This is what really elevates the project to be not look so homemade or anything. It really gives it a professional touch because it covers all of that white that might be poking through. And it just, if you were to see a natural one of these that was made from a florist, it would have this all over the base of the kissing ball as well. And then if you have some hot glue strings, just blast it with your heat gun to kind of get those to melt and go away. If you have plastic greenery, just be very careful not to melt that. Now, just as a side little hack here, I have a bunch of this potpourri that's left over. So all I'm doing, and of course you probably want to take your price tags off. I was just playing around with this at this point, but I just put the rest of that wreath in there and threw some greenery down into the bottom of a bowl. And I thought it would be kind of fun to stack the rest of this potpourri on here. So that way I could just set it on a table or something like that. I was really just trying to clean up my craft table, but I thought, well, let's try and put it into a bowl. And you can just see how easy it is that I had enough to do this project with, and then enough to make a beautiful bowl here. So that way you can have that scent go through your entire room that you're using. And trust me when I say this smells absolutely heavenly and just like Christmas. And they had a couple of different scents that you could choose from. I just really loved this pine smell here, but you can see how absolutely much of this potpourri that you actually get, and it is really, really nice and really good. And so it comes from Hobby Lobby, just to remind you, and I was very, very happy with it. For the top of the kissing ball, you can see I have that styrofoam space there still left around my hanger, and I thought it would be really beautiful to add some full natural looking bows. Now you could totally do whatever you wanted and have this kissing ball be completely covered in the pine and the pine cones and everything, but I really loved this birch ribbon that I have from Dollar Tree, and then this natural looking burlap ribbon. I am not the best bow maker in the world, so I don't even know how to explain to you what I did here, other than I just kind of did some loops with the ribbon, and then I put a zip tie, and you could easily use like a pipe cleaner or chenille stem. I'm not sure which is the correct way to call one of those, but it was some wire, anything like that would work, but I just used a zip tie. And then in order to put these on my kissing ball, I kind of just made a big hole for each of the bows here, and just a decent size that I could tuck the tails, and I'll do the best I can to show you here, but I put a bunch of hot glue down in there, and then the ends of the ribbon that were there from where I put that zip tie, I just shoved those down into that with the glue. And then I even end up grabbing like my scissors or my pliers here, and I just kind of will stick that down in to hold that, because it is such a massive amount of bow that I have there that I'm getting to take hold. But it does hold very well, and it works pretty good to do this. And I do end up trimming that little piece of the zip tie off, so don't worry too much about that. But you can see I just made my hole here for the burlap ribbon, and that was big enough for that little piece to stick down into there. And then you just fill it really good with some hot glue, and you can kind of see I'm just making it really cavernous there, so it is a pretty decent size, and just filling that with the hot glue. Now, if you have something better to do with the top of yours, or you have a different method to do this, I totally understand. It was just one of those things that I was like, this is gonna work if I do this. And you can see I tuck that ribbon down in there, and this sucker's not going anywhere. It really does hold really well. And you could even do a bow where you mix the ribbons together. I just thought it would be fun to kind of have from one side one bow, another side the other, and kind of as it spins, you kind of have both looks there. I just thought they looked really beautiful together. And then I go back in around the bows, and I'm just taking a couple little pieces from that potpourri to add to cover any spaces that might be there. This is the final result, and oh my gosh, it is absolutely beautiful and stunning. And if you guys could smell this, you would know why I'm so excited about this piece, because I really think it is so fun to take something like a bag of potpourri and make something beautiful like this with just a few extra picks that you might have, or some green foliage. And again, use your imagination, make this your own to fit your own decor. But I love the idea of bringing the potpourri into your home and having it in something else, and people are going to smell this beautiful smell in your home and not realize where it's coming from. And not only that, but you have such a show-stopping piece with this kissing ball. I would love to know your thoughts on this piece. For this project, I'm just starting out with some craft paper. You can pick this up at Dollar Tree. This time of year, you can find it in all of your gift wrapping. It's just regular brown packing paper, but you really can do it with any paper, and I end up doing it with a book page. So I'll show you exactly what I do. But I'm just cutting a strip, probably about 6 inches across. It just depends on how big you want your star to be. And really, these are like a star or a snowflake, you could call them. So I'm just gonna, for purposes, I'm gonna say that they're a star, but you're just gonna fold these in an accordion way. So I go down maybe like a 1/2 inch. What I end up doing is I end up getting a popsicle stick here. You can see like the craft stick, the thicker ones. That's what I use to make my folds uniform. And so I just fold that, and you can see I stick that in, make sure that I'm right to the edge of that craft stick. That way I'm getting nice straight folds, because if you're anything like me, I start folding it and then I'm like way off on one side and almost like I'm folding on a diagonal. So it was really nice to have this kind of as a guide. But you could use a ruler if you're good and you're like, oh my gosh, girl, I got this. I can just fold it without anything. Like, I know how to fold paper. Then you can definitely do that. But you're just going to go across or fold down maybe like 15 times or so. You just want, it just depends on how many different folds you would like in your star. So I'm just going to keep folding until I get to the end of this paper. Once you're to the end of the paper, I'm just going to take a piece of twine and I'm going to tie this off in the middle. Now you can fold it first or you can tie it off first. It's not going to matter right here, but I'm just going to show you here that I'm just taking a little bit of twine and I'm just going to tie this. This is just, I don't know that it has any purpose to it. I just tied it on there, but it really does just kind of add just a little visual interest into the center, and you can embellish these any way that you want to, but this is just helping so it doesn't like pop everywhere, because sometimes your paper might just open up and you're like, anyway. So I'm just showing you how I did this, and if you know an easier way or something, then go with that. Now I end up using some hot glue at this part, so you can see I'm folding it in half, But I do, when I do my book page, I end up using the Elmer school glue, which I like that a little bit better. To get the shape of your star, you just want to cut at an angle from one of the corners down. You can make it as dramatic as you want or as little as you want. But you're just going to want to glue your inside pieces together here. So you just folded that little teeny strip together. So the pieces you folded together, you just want to glue those. So you can see how I'm doing that. And I'm just going to press these together until that glue dries and it has a firm hold. And once that dries, you can start to open up your star here and you can kind of fan it out. Now, as you can see, I had some of the hot glue pieces there that I was having to pick a little bit that seeped out. So that's why I kind of liked using the Elmer's glue. But you can see I'm just going to take those other ends once you fold that open here, or unfold it open, I guess it would be the correct way to say that. I'm just going to do the same thing and put a little bit of glue on this side and then glue it together so your star will be completely open and it will reveal the most beautiful folds in there. And I just think it makes the most darling little shape. I just take a hole punch and I'm just hole punching kind of where a couple of those folds are, and I'm just feeding through some twine on there and tying that off so I have something to hang this with. Now, as I was doing this, I thought it would be really fun to add something a little extra, so I just take a Dollar Tree wooden bead. You could do a couple, like a couple different sizes. I just feel that this adds a little something extra, so it's not just the twine and the paper. It makes it look a little bit more high end and maybe not so like school project-y. It just kind of looks fun. And I just think it adds a little something extra, which I felt like it needed. I followed the exact same process with a page out of an old book that I've been using for some projects. I did use my, not this kind of Elmer's glue to adhere it, but just the purple glue stick to get the edges to stick together. But I thought it would be really fun to put some of this type of school glue on here. And I am just running my finger along the edges of all of those folds. And I want to put some glitter and some sparkle on here. I really love the way that the sparkle and the book page looks. Now, if you wanted to age your book pages, soak them in some coffee or tea, or even use a little bit of antiquing wax or something, that would look very pretty and vintage also. But you can see I'm just sprinkling this glitter everywhere and making sure that I hit all of those high spaces that I put that glue on, and then I let that completely dry. Now, once I did this once and I lifted up the star and saw how beautiful it was, I decided that I wanted to put a little bit more on the edges. I am so pleased with how these came out. I think they look beautiful, and my favorite, I think, is the book page with a little bit of sparkle. I do love the brown one. It definitely has a simplicity to it. Would you do anything to embellish that further? If so, I would love to know what you would do to it. But I just think that a whole bunch of these all over a tree would make such a statement, and they're fun and they're easy to make, and they were very quick. You could have your kids or grandkids help you. I just think they turned out so beautiful. I have these little red blocks from a different like home decor Christmas piece that I've had for years, but I'm ready to kind of change it up. So I kept the little blocks, took off the decals that were on them to use for another project so that way I can repurpose them. And I'm just taking some sage color chalk paint, and I wanted it to be a little bit darker, so I just added some antiquing wax. It's just the Waverly antiquing wax that I put in there, and I'm just going to use this as my color. Now, against that red, it doesn't look the greatest right now, but once you get it all covered up, I really do like the color. It's kind of a grayish green, really neutral, really pretty. Now, this ornament came from Walmart. I've seen wood trees kind of like this at Dollar Tree or Five Below or somewhere else. I've seen them besides Walmart, but they're so fun. Pick up a couple of them because I feel like they're so versatile. Now, to turn this from an ornament into something that you're working with, I'm just taking some pliers and holding on to that eye hook, and I'm just unscrewing that from the top so that way you don't have that piece right there. It's such a fun thing to use for tiered tray decor or different little knick-knack decor that you want, is just take some ornament pieces and take that little hanging portion out, and voila, you have such a beautiful piece to use. Now, these mini ornaments also came from Walmart. They do them every year. They have different designs each year, so this is this year's design, and I love this piece on Earth. I thought that was so cute. And if you have some from years past, they had some really cute Christmas tree farm ones that I thought would be really cute, but I'm just using some current pieces for this. So just using some hot glue, I'm going to center that the best I can. You guys know I love to eyeball things, so I just kind of feel with my fingers to make sure I have the closest to center there. And now I'm just going to put some glue onto this tree. You can even use some super glue. You don't necessarily have to use hot glue from this, but I feel like hot glue would work just fine. So once that kind of, I have it dried just a little bit so it doesn't come like seeping out over the edges or anything there. And then I'm just going to center that, and I'm going to use my fingers, you can kind of see there, to kind of feel the front and the back and the sides to make sure I get as close to even. That's kind of how I eyeball things. So do what you will with your methods. I'm sure it's going to work great. But in the end, this is just such a cute little shelf sitter. It would be beautiful on a tiered tray or mixed in with a bunch of different decor pieces. Even if you were making a bunch of these to sell, I think these would be adorable. I love them. I would love to know your thoughts on this. If you like this, do you guys want to see some tiered tray decor? I haven't done any Christmas tiered tray decor this year, and I'm kind of itching to do some. So let me know if you guys would like to see that. But overall, I think this is a beautiful piece. I love the natural look it has to it and kind of that neutral vibe. I love how this DIY turns out, and it is such a show-stopping piece. Oh, it's so beautiful, you guys. You're going to start out using some of these hoop orbs from Dollar Tree. Now, if you can't find these, because I know they're kind of elusive at some Dollar Trees, some embroidery hoops would work well. The bamboo hoops they have at Dollar Tree, even like at your craft store, down like the macrame aisle, you can find some hoops like this. So just something, you want at least 3 of them. The one from Dollar Tree came with 4, and this is the larger size that Dollar Tree has. They have 2 different sizes. So depending on how big you want to make yours, you'll just kind of have to do one of the larger, the small ones. Now, they come with these wonderful little metal fixtures here to try and help you space this out. They're horrible to try and figure. I mean, I'm sitting here trying to read the instructions, which I could not figure out. I couldn't. It was just so horrible, you guys. So the best place for these little metal fixtures is in the trash. Take your zip ties. You can buy a pack of these in the automotive section at Dollar Tree. I love them. They are perfect when you're making wreaths or floral arrangements, this included, because we're kind of doing a floral arrangement with this. But we're going to set our zip tie in, and I'm just going to make sure that you'll see how it'll open up. The one hoop is facing one direction, the other one's like kind of making an X there. So you want to turn over your hoops, and you're going to want to put one on the bottom, and that way kind of in the opposite way that you put the first one on, so it's going to hold these open. I hope you can see what I'm doing. It's hard for me to kind of verbalize it, so hopefully you can just kind of see what I mean there, so that way you kind of have your orbs standing there. And then I'm just going to add the other 2 orbs in and putting some zip ties the same way on each of those, so that way I have this completely open. I felt like this was just so much easier than figuring out that little metal fixture.
Round after round of food, in part because I did not want the celebration to end, but I must confess I was also quite apprehensive of my wedding night. In fact, I was quite full by the time I got to Aubrey Hall. I certainly do not recommend that. Well, what do you recommend, Emma? I know you and the Duke, well, whatever took place between the two of you.
Right here, I'm just using some pliers to pull the zip ties tight. That is one way to make sure they're going to hold open your hoops here. You can kind of see they're already starting to be held just with the couple of zip ties that I've added. But once it stays open and you feel it's pretty secure, you don't need to have any more zip ties. And you're just going to cut all of the extra tails on there off, and we will be covering those. You just want to make sure that there's no sharp edges as you're working with this, because you certainly don't want to cut yourself on a zip tie. Now I'm just taking a piece of styrofoam here just to kind of cut into a square piece to put at the base of the orb here. And so you can kind of see, I'm just going to push that down. Here we go. Get that all punched in there where that zip ties and everything sits. And then I use just a lot of hot glue. I know hot glue and styrofoam are not the best of friends, but I put a bunch on there and I let it dry thoroughly before I move ahead with my next step. That way that styrofoam is nice and secure. Now comes the fun part here of being able to embellish this. Now everything I do, take with a grain of salt. You can decorate this any way that you would want. I'm going to take these grapevine sticks here. I buy a bundle of them at the floral accent section at Hobby Lobby. I've seen them at Michael's and at JoAnns. It's just, I pull the little sticks out of the little bundle there and use them in different floral arrangements. When I'm going for that really woodland vibe, they are perfect. Now I'm starting at the top of the orb and I'm just kind of circling these around. The grapevine is so nice because it has kind of like a bendability to it, almost like wire. And so it actually circles around these orbs really well. I just thought this would disguise the metal on these if you were using like the bamboo hoops or I keep wanting to say emery boards, but they're not emery boards. Oh my gosh, embroidery hoops. When you use embroidery hoops, you may really not have an issue of having the wire show. And in all truthfulness, the wires would look fine if you just left them blank. I just really wanted this to look woodsy and like it was just made out of something that you found out in the forest. So that's why I wrapped all of these with that grapevine. After I get the grapevine all wound on there, it's time to start building our base, which is our floral piece here. And so I take several different pieces of greenery. I picked all of these up at Hobby Lobby. You guys, I shop at Hobby Lobby all the time because I literally have one less than a mile from my house. But any craft store that you would be able to go to, you'd be able to find this greenery. And right now, I feel like it's on sale at all of these different places at Hobby Lobby. It's 50% off right now. So I picked up a bunch of different ones to just kind of have a whole bunch of variety and textures, things that kind of all looked like that natural look here. I didn't want the real fake plasticky looking stuff, but I'm really pleased with everything. So you're just going to kind of work to begin with in a symmetrical way. So you can kind of see there, I stuck that one pine in. I will go to the next corner and stick the next piece in. I'm putting a little bit of glue. That's just going to give you that permanent hold. And you can kind of see how symmetrical I am there, that each of the corners has one of those. That's how I start out, is just adding pieces in that symmetrical way, going all the way around. That's what's going to give you the fullness that you need. It's just important as you're doing this to kind of keep turning it, adding your greenery. And when you look at it and you go, ooh, I don't like the way that looks, it's so easy to just pull it out and stick it somewhere else. Do not glue it until you know for sure that's where you want it though. But it is nice on some of the bigger pieces to add a little bit of glue so that way they are not going to fall out of here. Especially if this is going to go outdoors or somewhere where you have high winds or something, you want to make sure that those pieces are nice and secure. When you're using this many types of greenery, it's really hard to mess this up in my opinion. So just go with what feels good and what looks good. Just making sure that you're spinning your piece to give it that nice symmetrical look. Now you can kind of see, and I'll show you, I apologize I don't show it here because it's kind of more at the end. There's a bucket that I have under here that I picked up at Vintage Market Days, and that's actually going to be what I set this on for my base. So what I'm doing is setting this on here and seeing how it flops over the edge. So if you have a piece that you're going to set this on, I would recommend doing that every once in a while to make sure that you're building it to what you need. Now I have these antlers that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. They were only like a couple of dollars and I thought they would be so cute and so whimsical to bring that nice woodland feel, that real natural tones. I love the ivories and the browns and the greens and everything that comes with this style of Christmas decor. And then I have this darling little owl that I found. Oh my gosh, I thought that was perfect. He actually inspired this whole piece when I found that little owl. And I just thought he was so adorable. Now I'm taking, this is from Walmart, this white berried juniper, I think is what it's called. And so I just thought, I stuck in these two pieces right here and looked at it and then went, okay, I actually really do like that. It brought a little bit more of a winter feel into it. And so if you wanted to add some color into this, definitely some red berries would look really beautiful, or even some gold or something like that would definitely be really pretty. Now I just put a couple of different pine cones there at varying heights next to my little owl friend. I feel like he needs a name. We need to name this cute little owl something. If you have some ideas, let me know down in the comments. I love when you guys come up with names for my little friends that I have in my pieces. You guys come up with some of the cutest names. I absolutely love it. So I just glued a couple of little like nuts that I had that were in a potpourri container. I think there's some kind of nuts. To be honest with you, I'm not really sure, but they match the antlers perfectly. So I glued a couple of those in to tie that kind of ivory or lighter brown tan color in. Now I'm just taking the floral wire that looks like grapevine. It has this coating or this stuff wrapped on it. It actually blends very well in with the grapevine and looks like it's part of that. I'm wrapping this kind of in between each of those little wire rings. That way it's going to cover any part of the zip ties that would still be showing, and it also is securing the grapevine at the top. And so this is definitely a crucial step here. Now, right now, I just happen to make a little loop that I added onto the top, totally optional. If it's not your thing, that's great. A lot of the ones I saw online like this had that little hook on the top. And it was so nice because if I decide I want to hang this, I definitely can. It is absolutely beautiful and would be so pretty hanging. Now I'm going to spin my wire with my pliers there to make sure it's nice and tight and secure, so that way it's not going to fall or come apart or anything. And then any excess wire that's hanging, I just trim that off. And then I'm just bending it up with my plier just to make sure that there's no sharp edges that are going to catch on anything. Now this part of the DIY actually took the longest and is totally optional. I wrapped fairy lights around each of these wires to light this up, and I really think this makes this piece. But look, you guys, I love how this turns out. I think this is so beautiful. I found pieces like this online that were over $200 for smaller than this. This is so beautiful. I have a little bit invested in this. I think my bucket I picked up at Vintage Market Days for like $10, I believe. And then I probably spent about $25-ish in greenery for this piece. So definitely if you have some scraps or you wanted to use stuff from Dollar Tree, you could cut down on the cost there. But I mean, pennies on the dollar for what these cost retail. And I just think this is so beautiful. I love this sweet little owl. Isn't he just the cutest? Oh, I just love him. And the fairy lights make this piece, but you could definitely have it without the fairy lights, and it would still be absolutely beautiful. But what a fun way to bring that woodsy feeling into your home at Christmas time. What do you guys think of this piece? I've had this little nativity ornament for a little while, and I really felt like if I was to put it on my tree, it might kind of get lost in there, and I really did want to showcase it, since we do like to have a lot of decor that does remind us of the true meaning of Christmas and the nativity, and I just love it. It's this little like wrought iron. It's really flat. It's just very simple, very rustic. So I'm just cutting off the little hanger from it with some wire cutters here, and then I will just sand that down so it's not sharp at all. And I just used some elephant chalk paint and some silver lining and just kind of stained these little paint sticks that I got at Lowe's. And you can see how cute that looks. And I'm just doing that to kind of measure for where I want to cut the paint sticks down to, so that way I'll have a background. Now you can do whatever you would like with an ornament like this for a background. This is just to give you some inspiration or some ideas here, but I'll just cut these down. You can cut them down however you would. If you have some miter shears or something like that, that would probably work as well. But you can see that I love the shape of that, how it fits. So I just glue the ends I cut off on the back with some wood glue and hot glue, and that's what's going to hold all of this together. Now I want to brighten it up a little bit, so I'm just using some plaster chalk paint and just doing a very heavy dry brush on here, so that way that kind of rustic metal, it's like a rustish brown color, it's not quite black, will really pop against this, and it's just going to look like really weathered wood there. And I kind of decide that it needs a little something extra, so I stain a few more pieces of my painter sticks, and I'm going to cut them. I'm going to make a little roof line, like a barn roof line on this. So on the ones that I'm going to put on my roof, I do stain a little bit darker, and then you can see those ones I cut at an angle. I'm kind of making a little roof line there and just gluing those with some other little pieces. So there we go. Looks kind of like a little barn or a little house. and then I'm just gluing these together for the roof. Now you could easily use one of the little houses that you find at Dollar Tree or whatever you can find, but I thought this was super fun, super cute, and I think it's just going to look really cute when it's done. So I glue the roof on here, and then I do a little dry brushing on that, and just use some gel super glue to glue this nativity on. Now it looks absolutely beautiful the way that it is here. I just love how simplistic this looks, but you know me, I have to kind of extra everything. So I have some barn wood from a barn that we tore down a little while ago. So I just take a couple of pieces of that. This would be completely optional. You could find anything else that you would like to do with this to add a different background to it. But I really liked the idea of using something that was special to us, like our barn that we tore down and the barn wood from that, and how simple of the nativity with the stable and the wood. I just thought it all went really well, and the special meaning that it had for my family. But this is really all there is to this. It's very simple, but I think it is so beautiful and so elegant, and what a wonderful reminder of the true meaning of Christmas. I saw something similar to this project scrolling through the internet, and I was originally going to gather my own sticks that I had to do this, but I found this little bundle of sticks that had the snow and glitter covering to them at Hobby Lobby. It was $5, and then so half off, so it was $2.50, and it meant that I didn't have to go gather together sticks of wood, cut them to the right size, and bundle them together. So if you have a lot of sticks and you want to do that, by all means, take that route. But I did find these at Hobby Lobby. If you have access to one of those, or maybe even another craft store might have something similar. I found these little trees at Walmart, and I bought 3 of them because I thought I would kind of stack them in here almost like they were growing. This is just kind of a little woodsy vignette that we're going for. Just something perfect to tuck into the background of your Christmas decor that you have, just to bring that greenery in and that nice rustic outdoor look with they look like logs, but it's really like the sticks, but it's kind of giving the impression of a log there. And so I'm just arranging these in here, and then once I have my placement, I'll go in with some hot glue just to make sure that they stay there. You wouldn't have to do this step if this is something that you maybe were going to dismantle at the end of the season and use them for another project, or set it up each year, or use them for different projects. But in order to have them be more permanent, just stick a little bit of hot glue in there. Now it was beautiful just like this as it was, and I'm just making sure to get, before that glue dries, all of the trees positioned exactly how I want them. But I felt like it was missing a little something. So I have this bag of different mosses from the craft store, and I thought it would be kind of fun and give it more of an earthy look, kind of that woodsy look. Honestly, as I was putting this together, I kept hearing the song, like the Over the River and Through the Woods. For some reason, I really just felt like that song and this piece spoke to me together. And so I really just wanted to make it look as natural and woodsy as I could. So there was this little bit of moss, or I'm not even sure what this is, but it was in this package and it had this beautiful tone to it and texture. So I just glued that around the base of the trees to just give another bit of embellishment and texture to this piece. Now I'm also taking a little bit of the brown. It is almost like a reindeer moss, but it's kind of this like brown natural color. I did not glue these pieces in. However, if you want to do that, you definitely could. But the different sticks held it very well. So you can see I'm just kind of pushing it in with my scissors, or use your pliers or something, and it held it really well. Now this is completely optional. You guys are going to have to tell me if you like this piece on here or not, but I had this little reindeer from Dollar Tree, and I thought that it would be really elegant and a really fun touch to add this. You could do any other kind of piece of ornament on here. A little red truck might be really cute if you had a more realistic looking deer, or a little fox or something to set on there. But I really did like the way that the deer looked. But I'll show you both ways so you can let me know. This is just the plain way. I'm very happy with how this turned out. I think this, again, it's maybe not going to be your main centerpiece in your decor, but tucked in to bring that greenery and that woodsy look, I think is going to be beautiful. And I really do love the sparkle that was on this bundle of sticks. I really thought that was fun. Now here it is with the deer. There is just something about this. It has a little bit of more of a high-end look, I feel like, with that. But again, just the minimalist look is very beautiful too. Let me know in the comments if you like the deer or if you would leave it out. This little silver tray from Dollar Tree has sat in my stash for a very long time, and I've never really known what to do with it, but I actually have the perfect idea. I feel like you'll have to let me know. So I'm just painting the front and the back completely with 2 or 3 layers of chalk paint and just a neutral color. And I have this stamp. I picked this up at Hobby Lobby in case you're wanting to pick one up similar to it. I know there's a lot of different companies that make a script stamp, so it just looks like writing. And I just rubbed my black ink pad all over it, and I'm just going to press it down. This is just the front part of the tray, so like the serving part. Now this is going to be a decoration. It's not going to be for food or anything. You'll see why here as we go along. But you can see that I just kind of place that in different directions on there. And even though there's like a gap missing somewhere, totally fine. I even go in and fill in some of the other little areas with some different directions. It all looks fine in the end. At first I was like, ooh, what did I do? But what you want to do now is after that ink has a minute to kind of set, I'm spraying it with my mister bottle, and you can see it's making the ink run everywhere. I'm just going to wipe that off with a paper towel because it's just going to tone that ink back. That chalk paint has already grabbed onto the initial part of that ink, so it's because it's so porous, it's holding on to that, but I'm just wiping off the excess ink. Stick with me because I know you're going to love how this ends up looking. So I take some Crackle Medium and I am just putting that onto the front part of my tray. You just want to make sure that you get a decent coverage, a good coat on there, and then you want to follow the instructions of your Crackle Medium. This is Folk Art, but there's several different types on the market that you can use. Just make sure you're following your instructions, letting it dry completely. So now that it's dry, you're going to take your paint that you want as your top coat. I'm choosing the same color as my base coat, and I'll show you why here in just a moment. You may think that's not the point of Crackle, but you'll see how it turns out. You just don't want to go over areas that you've been because you can disturb that process that's happening of the crackle. So if you do it early on before that paint starts to set, because you can definitely do that. And if you've seen me in any of my other videos, you know I've learned that from experience. So you can kind of see how it's starting to crackle there. You can see a little bit of that script coming through, just a very subtle touch. And I take a wet paper towel or a baby wipe with some antiquing wax, just a water-based antiquing wax. I use Waverly, but you can use any kind that you would like as long as it's water-based. And I'm just wiping this all over that crackle. So that's going to settle down into all of those crackled areas and really make those pop. I didn't want to have like a lot of different colors on this to do the typical crackle style. You can even see I'm spraying it with my mister bottle there, and I'm just going to rub the excess off of the top because I really just want all of those cracks that we created to absorb that antiquing wax. Now I didn't place the Crackle Medium on the edge of the tray because it had this lovely detail that I figured I could distress much more easily doing this. So I'm just putting a little bit of the antiquing wax all the way around the edge of the tray, and then I will just take a paper towel or baby wipe and wipe it back so it goes down into all the grooves, and then you're wiping away the top to reveal that design. Now look at how cute this Santa ornament is. I picked that up at Walmart this year, so check and see. I was at my Walmart the other day again and they had tons of them. And I'm just taking some IOD Christmas molds. Now you definitely don't have to use this. I just had a lot of you say that you have purchased these and you were excited to see what I did with them. But I think if you were to use some buttons or even some actual greenery to do this with, there's so many different possibilities. But I'm just placing my air dry clay into my mold here, and I'm using actually my Cricut tool here. This actually works really well to scrape off the excess clay. As you can see here, you can kind of cut into it. I can use it to get into the edges. So there's a little hack for you that I kind of accidentally discovered. I was kind of looking for something to scrape that off with and went, that's perfect. So the little spatula tool works great. Now, once you have this all pushed in, you're going to turn your mold over and you're just going to release it by bending it and working very slowly, just kind of grabbing onto it and helping it drop out of there. You're not pulling, you're just kind of helping it to fall out of there. I've heard some other creators doing like where they put it into the freezer for a little bit to harden it a little bit more. There's lots of different methods, but I have not had a trouble doing it this way. As you can see, it takes a minute here. It's kind of a slow process to get that all out, but once it starts falling, gravity just kind of takes over. You can see I kind of have to help it just a little bit there, just a little nick there to get it to completely have gravity take over and fall out. And so you can kind of see where I'm going to place these on here. I cut, or not cut, but I end up casting two of these to go on both corners on the top of my Santa, and then I move on to do some for the bottom. Now what I did is I casted a shorter one. I just didn't bring my clay all the way down to the bottom of my mold because I wanted, you can see that my tray is not big enough to do a full one on the bottom. And so what I end up doing is I end up tearing away part of the mold here, and I'll take some clay and I will go and cast the bottom part only so I can have that finished look like it really is the true edge to my bows there. So you can see I just put it into the bottom part and pull that out. And even when I match that up, I think, oh, I need to pull a little bit of this away. So you just tear it off and you're just going to place it on there and see how that looks. Now we have to adhere these. So how do we do that? I've heard wood glue works, and so that's what I'm going to try. So I just placed some wood glue on the back. My clay is still wet at this point, so it is I can manipulate it very well, bend it to where I need to, but I'm just using my finger to spread that wood glue all over. And so that way I can get all of those tiny little pieces and everything and make sure that I put a decent amount on there that it's going to hold. And again, just spread that out with my finger, and then I just place that down. And since it is wet, I can kind of still move it, bend it, and that way get it positioned exactly how I want it. I do this to all of my pieces, and then I let this sit overnight to dry. You can see how beautiful it looks. And there was one little area that cracked, but that's okay. It just adds to that vintage look, and we're going to paint over it. So really the paint does kind of, if you have just minimal cracking like that, the paint kind of goes into there and fills that space in. But I'm just going to paint these the same as the base color of the tray. So in this case, it was just kind of a white or neutral color. And then I'm going to age it so it looks like it belongs on here. So I'm just getting a brush with some antiquing wax and getting into all of those little tiny grooves. And this mold from IOD has so much detail that it really is a lot that antiquing wax goes down in and grabs onto to reveal so much detail. And you can see I'm just wiping it away with a baby wipe here, just getting all of that excess antiquing wax off as much as I can anyway with my baby wipe. And then I will go back in with a little bit kind of like a dry brushing and hit all of the high points of these boughs. And then also kind of, you can see I'm getting into the edge there just to kind of clean it up a bit and make it look a little bit more like it was just aged and dirt had just fallen in there. So this is the finished product. I love it. I think it looks great. So it's just a matter of personal preference of what style you like. Now I'm going to place my Santa head on here like this Santa ornament. I just unscrewed the little hanging thing from the top of him, and I'm just using some E6000. I'm just going to let this sit so I don't use any hot glue, but you definitely could if you need that instant hold, but I was just going to be letting this sit again for a while to cure and dry, so I just used the E6000, and I just centered it on there. And I just think this has such a beautiful, like Victorian look almost. I don't know, this Santa ornament really just spoke to me, and I thought this tray and that worked really well together, and it was such a fun way to use those molds. But again, use your imagination if you don't have them. Definitely don't worry about that. Like I said, some buttons would be so beautiful there. Some actual greenery that you glued onto there would be beautiful. Even leaving it plain, that edge on that tray is beautiful as is. There's so many different possibilities. So just use what you have, and I'm sure yours is going to turn out absolutely beautiful. For this project, I'm just using some of the sticks, the branches that I picked up at our farm this fall as we were cleaning up, and I have a whole pile of them. My husband kind of has a love-hate relationship with me bringing sticks home from the farm. He loves that I pick them up, but then suddenly realizes that I'm bringing them all home to sit in a pile. Anyhow, I picked out 4 branches here, or sticks, and I had to kind of break one down to be the size that I needed. I'm going to do a really beautiful tree shape out of these. As I was scrolling through for some inspiration on the internet, I saw a couple of these trees done with some sticks, and I thought they were just so lovely and easy. So that's what we're doing here. So as you can see, I have some wire here, just some floral wire works fine. This is covered where it looks in like some type of something to make it look like it's the branches. It's that brown color or something. And I really like that because it kind of kept that organic feel that I'm going for here, that very woodsy type feel. So I'm just going to take my center branch, which is going to be longer than all of them because it will end up sitting in a pot, and I'm going to make a triangle tree, like Christmas tree shape here. So I'm going to take my wire, and this is kind of the hardest part. You may want to be tempted to use some hot glue to help your branches kind of stick together while you're doing this. It's not going to work. The glue does not stick to them. It kept falling. I tried it and it kept coming apart. So you just kind of have to hold them. You have a little bit of time to manipulate your shape after you get your wire tightened. But once you do your first wrap around and tighten it with some pliers, you can see here I will grab my pliers and I'm just twisting that wire. That's just going to make sure that the wire goes super tight into your project, and it's going so these branches don't move. Now, as I twist that wire around in a different direction here, you're just going crisscross with the wire so everything is just held in place. And then when I get my two ends together, I'll do the same thing, wrap with some pliers. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here, but you just want to you wrap around one way and then you wrap it around crossways. And so that way you get kind of like an X shape with your floral wire there. And you can see I'll grab that. I'm flipping it around so I can get an easier hold on it here. But with my pliers, I'll just grab my two wire ends and then you're just twisting that around to tighten that. That way nothing's going to be sliding out of there or anything like that. Now I'm going to put the bottom shape, that bottom line of the triangle for the Christmas tree shape there. And I'm going to do the same thing where those ends meet on each of those branches. The exact same thing with crisscrossing that wire. Now you could use twine to tie this if you wanted to. I struggle with that whenever I've made pieces where I've had to tie rather than the wire. The wire I feel like just gives you a little bit better of a hold and it's easy to maneuver. So if you're like, oh, I know how to tie this up, I've done that several times, go ahead and do that. That works great too. I just felt like the wire was a little easier for me to work with, especially since like the sticks are going in all different directions. I needed something that would hold them very tightly. But everywhere that there's a connection with your sticks, you're going to do this. So I will go over and do it on the other corner. You'll see here in just a moment. And then where the center branch comes down, I will also do it there so it holds that branch in place. Now the fun part of this is you get to embellish it any way you want and the possibilities are completely endless. So I was kind of going for an asymmetrical look here. I wanted some really woodsy, organic feeling pine boughs on here. So, and I have even these little feathers that to me kind of look like some sticks or something, just a different textural element. And I loved that deep brown color with them. And so you can kind of see I'm going to go down that side of my tree with all of these. And there's a couple different types of pine there, greenery. They're probably not really pine. I'm just saying that because that's all I can think of at the moment, but some different greenery for some contrast. Now this is just a bundle of like a swag of grapevine sticks that I purchased at Hobby Lobby. And just as I need sticks, I just pull them out a couple at a time. Now I'm going to grab a couple of these and make a little bundle of sticks, different sizes of sticks, some a little bit shorter, some a little bit longer. And I'm just wrapping some floral wire around the top of these to bundle them all together. And again, I'm just tightening that wire because I don't want these to fall out or anything. I just want to make sure they're nice and secure. Now I'm going to slip this up on this side of my tree, kind of get it as much as I can up underneath where I've already tightened with that wire. And if I need to go back in with more wire to tighten this in now, you can do that as well. And then I'm going around the center here with these branches, or not the center. What I'm doing is I'm wrapping these kind of around like the grapevine is naturally growing down the side of the tree. It gives a little bit of texture. To hold these down in the middle, I'll grab just another little piece of that floral wire and go around the center here. And I apologize, when I go to do this here and tighten this, I completely go out of frame, but I'm just twisting this around. It blends in and it's just what's going to give an extra secure, like stableness to those little teeny branches going down. And so that way they're nice and secure. I even grab a couple of the little grapevine branches and do the same thing over on this other side, just again to give it a little bit of texture. I just wanted this to look like it was just something that was gathered out in the woods and just made from natural pieces that you would find, and just look really kind of whimsical almost. Really going for that woodland type of vibe that is so popular. I love the neutrality of those DIYs and the feel of them, just kind of like a very, I keep saying organic because that's what comes to mind, but just kind of like that organic, natural feel. The fun thing about these DIYs like this is you get to put them up as soon as you start decorating for your holiday season, and they can last all until you're ready to get your springtime out, because it's not specifically like Christmas. I mean, you can make it that way, but I mean, they really have more of like that winter feel. I love the rich wood tones and the browns with that greenery. I just think it's so pretty. So now you can see here, I'm just tying on the different greenery that I have here. I'll slip it in, and then I go kind of do like a dry fit. I'm using a little bit of hot glue right now, just so I can have this kind of be, it's not for permanent hold, it's just to kind of hold it in place until I can get my floral wire to wire it in so it becomes permanent, because the glue will not hold on these branches. I think I mentioned that earlier. They will fall off. So you just want to make sure it's just to hold it until I can get my floral wire there and secure it more tightly. I even put those little feathers in there. I just thought that was such a fun little look. Now these bells came from Hobby Lobby. And this is kind of another little DIY within a DIY, but you kind of can't tell on here. The color of the gold is so yellow and it's almost streaky. They're very inexpensive, and they definitely look very inexpensive. So we're going to give them a makeover and kind of make them look more like those traditional farmhouse bells that you see in all of the decor, especially at Christmas time. We're going to start out by giving these a good coat of black chalk paint, and then this is just some gold rub and buff that I am using here. This stuff is so amazing, and it gives such a much better gold color than the tone that was already on these bells. So I'm just going to squeeze out just a little bit. You need just a teeny bit to work with. Now you can use your finger too if you would like to. That works well, but I'm just taking that little bit on my paper towel, and I'm just going to dab the excess off and just kind of go in and just start rubbing around. You can see immediately how that starts to make it look shiny there. In fact, it took me a minute to look at it and be like, wow, that actually worked out really, really well. It's such a beautiful tone that it gives, and the contrast between the black and that gold is going to give you that very rustic look. Even if you don't love the distressed with the black and the gold, if you purchase these bells from Hobby Lobby, I highly recommend just rubbing this gold over them to enhance them and make them look a lot like much better. And if you see these bells in person, again, it doesn't quite pick up on camera, but if you see them in person, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's such a fake color that's on there, and it's streaky. So it's kind of fun to be able to enhance them and have them look kind of tailored to your taste. I love the contrast with the black and the gold because it does make it look very rustic, which is what I'm going for. I want these bells to look like they've sat out in the woods for years. Hopefully that's what I achieve. You can see here, I'm just going to show you the original color. You can kind of see a little bit the gold between that original one. Again, it doesn't pick up how bad they really are on camera. But now I've just hung my bells over the top of the tree there, wired them in with some floral wire. And then this is just an IKEA pot with some styrofoam and some moss on the top of it to tone it down so it's not so stark silvery, looks maybe like it's rusted. I'm just taking some antiquing wax on a brush, and I'm just going around all of the ridges on this. Whatever pot you have to put this in, you can use your imagination. I really loved the look of this galvanized metal. And then just when I'm doing the antiquing wax, I'm paying special attention to hit all of the little edges and everything where it would naturally rust. But look at how beautiful and elegant this is. It's so simple, and I feel like it just really captures just that Christmas feel. It's got that traditional Christmas tree shape, and I just love the natural whimsical greenery that's on there. I think this is so beautiful, and it was so easy to do, especially if you can just go out in your yard or wherever, find some sticks. If you don't have sticks, some dowels from the craft store or your local hardware store would work just as easily to make this. I would love to know your thoughts on this. So I'm going to call this a thrift flip because my mother-in-law was going through a bunch of her Christmas decor, getting rid of things. She had a whole pile of stuff bound for the thrift store to donate, and she said I could have whatever I wanted. So I picked this Santa out. I think he is cute. However, he's very brightly colored for my decor, and it looks a little dated, to be honest with you. So I thought he had a really good texture to him though, so I thought it would be fun to try this technique with. So it took about 3 coats of white chalk paint to get him completely covered. Now, any color would be really fun to do, even like spray painting him gold. I know that the gold Christmas decor is such a trend right now. I'm waiting for the right Santa to try that technique with. But this one I just covered completely in white, and then I'm taking my antiquing wax and I'm going to go all over him completely, just making sure that I'm using a brush that's going to get into all of the little crevices. Now, this Santa had a very good texture, so it was perfect to do this technique with. So I'm just going to go all over completely and make sure that he's totally covered with this antiquing wax from head to toe. Now that Santa is completely covered in antiquing wax, I'm going to take a paper towel. A baby wipe will probably work a little bit better, but I was out of wipes this day. So I just use a paper towel and a little bit of a mister bottle here, and I'm just going to wipe back the antiquing wax. So what will happen is it's just going to wipe away all of the antiquing wax on the raised surfaces, leaving those little nooks and crannies, and all of that texture will hold on to that antiquing wax, making this look like it's been left out for years. It's aged. It's just a really cool finish in my opinion. Now I've done this several times with some of the little gnomes that you get at Dollar Tree to put on tiered trays, which are so cute to do. So it's the same type of technique, but it's kind of fun to take something that is like, ugh, you're not going to put it in your home because it's the wrong colors or something, and make it more neutral or make it match your decor. Once I have all of that antiquing wax wiped back, I'm going to go over with what paint was left in my brush, and I'm just hitting the high spots here. So I'm just going back over almost like a dry brush. This is just going to brighten up those whites. It gives a really good contrast to your antiquing wax. And after I looked at this, he's so cute the way that he is, but I thought, it's Christmassy. It's Christmas season. Let's brighten him up a bit. So I'm putting some Mod Podge all over him, and I'm going to give him a glitter bath, which really just means that I'm going to pour glitter all over him. So this is completely optional. I just thought it would be fun since this was just a piece that I was trying to perfect my technique with and see how it looked. It ends up looking so fun. My kids absolutely loved the glitter on it, but I understand if glitter is not your thing, or if you're like me and at Christmas time, the more glitter, the better. Totally optional. But again, I just covered it completely with Mod Podge so that we had a good coat all over him. And this is just an iridescent glitter from Walmart. You could do it in any color glitter that you wanted. I thought this just kind of had a nice glistening look. Just like the antiquing wax, you're going to cover him with Mod Podge and glitter from head to toe, front to back. The nice thing about putting a piece of paper underneath when you're doing glitter is you can just take the excess, put it right back into the container. This will make sure your glitter lasts forever. Look at how adorable this Santa is. I think glitter or no glitter, either way, he's going to be a great addition to my Christmas decor. I think he's so cute. This is such a great technique to try with any pieces that you're looking at going, I wish I could tone this down a little bit. I don't love the bright color or it doesn't match. This is a great way to take a piece that is destined for the thrift store like this and make it right for your home. What do you guys think of him? Have you been able to find these cute little tin reindeer at Dollar Tree? I just think they're so cute, and they come in a couple different patterns, but I'm going to give this one a little bit of a makeover. There's so many different fun DIYs I've seen out there, but I'm just using some pliers to remove the deer from the little wooden stand. If it was a little difficult for me to do, if you have a hard time, you could even just tape around the base so that way you're not going to get any paint on it if you want to kind of leave it, or you could just paint it along with the deer if you want. I'm going to give this kind of that aged metal look here. I'm just painting it all black, and I will do the front and the back. This is just some black chalk paint just to start with your base. I think that the black looks really pretty. We're going to give this kind of a gold tone to it as well. And I just think the black has a really good undertone to it. But you could, of course, go through with whatever type of color you wanted to have be your underneath color. I'm just taking a little bit of black paint here after that first coat, and I'm going to mix some baking soda in with it. This is just, I'm doing this on a plate here. Do not worry about that red paint. It's dry. I'm just reusing my plate as many times as I can before I have to absolutely throw it away. Now I'm just going to mix this baking soda in. This is going to give a really nice texture to our paint. You could also use some spackling with a little bit of paint mixed in if you would like to. Some sand if you have to put, just something to give it a little bit of texture. So because we really want to lay that texture on thick, so when we do give this its final finish, that it really has the bumpy look to it. And you'll see what I mean as we go on here. Now I'm just going up and down, kind of like in a stippling motion, just putting this texture on. You'll notice with the baking soda that it's not really like in a spreadable consistency. So you do kind of want to, not in the traditional sense as like paint. But I mean, if you were to use a putty knife, you could probably spread it. But with your brush, you're just going up and down in that pouncing motion. You can kind of hopefully see the texture here when I zoom in, kind of see what it looks like there. So you're just going to go over all of this. Now you can give the texture to the back if you would like to. You can leave the back plain black. You could even finish the back the same as you do the front. That's completely up to you. Now I'm just taking some Rub and Buff. This is that gold color. It has such a nice, beautiful tone to it. I'm really kind of going for this nice woodland vibe with the rich tones, kind of those really like the gold and the black and the deep browns is really what I'm kind of feeling with this piece. And you can see here, I'm just going to rub that Rub and Buff on. I eventually switch over to my finger on this particular piece though. Some of the ones when I've done bells before, it's worked really well with a paper towel, but with the texture on this, it was kind of eating through the paper towel, if that makes sense. So I'm just, I switch over to my finger in just a moment and kind of rub it on. I felt like I could get the texture and the coverage I wanted. So don't be afraid to do that. It washes right off your finger. You're not going to be walking around with gold tipped fingers for weeks or anything like that. But you can see that beautiful texture coming through. And here was where I kind of start going through with my finger because I wanted it to have a little more of the heavier gold tone than the black, and just kind of have the black peek through. Like again, this was just a piece that was just sitting, aging for years, something that has stood the test of time. I just thought it was a really fun way to take a piece that, even though it was cute in that buffalo check, that it just shows you that you can take a piece and change it to match your decor or what you're envisioning. And of course, you wouldn't have to just singly do this on the reindeer. Maybe you've got another piece at home already that you're thinking that you could do this on to have in your decor to kind of change something up. Now for the base, I'm just taking some antiquing wax. I wanted to make this look a lot richer. That more deep woodsy brown color, kind of like tree bark, is kind of what I'm going for here. So just some antiquing wax that I'm going to rub onto this. Now it is like a composite. It's not actual wood. So when you go onto the edges, it absorbs it like you would not believe. So instead of pouring your antiquing wax directly on it, you're just going to want to use a brush to kind of go over the edge there. To get this back in, it was very hard for me to actually kind of push this back in. I thought maybe it would just slide right back in. Maybe you'll have a little bit better luck than me, but the tin is very kind of flimsy feeling, so I didn't want to force it because I didn't want to bend that. So on the little stakes that are there, I'm taking just a dowel and just like my little rubber mallet here, and I'm just gently tapping. I don't know if it looks like I'm tapping gently, but trust me, I am, because I did not want this to bend, and just tapping that back down into those holes there, and that's just going to make it, you can kind of see I decided I need to go in just a little bit further, so just a couple little taps there just to make sure that it looks so good and it's really adhered to that. And you just want to make sure none of the legs are like bent or anything like that. So now I thought to dress him up a little bit more, I would give him a little bow tie. So I'm just taking some velvet ribbon. You can see kind of in the right hand bottom corner of my screen. I bought this in the scrapbook section at Hobby Lobby. I just really thought it was a beautiful color of green and was kind of the tone I was going for. So I'm just wrapping it around, giving him a little collar there. And then I had just tied a little bow. You can kind of see on the right hand side of my glue gun there, just a little teeny loop bow that I tied off there, and we'll just go ahead and glue that on to give him his little bow tie. I think this turned out so classy and sophisticated. I just love the way he looks with this cute little bow tie there. This is such a fun technique to take something that looked one way and then completely transform it to this neutral woodland vibe. This texture is such a trend right now, and it is beautiful, I feel, and I just really like how it turned out. And this is such a fun technique to use on any type of piece that you're thinking of. It wouldn't just have to be this reindeer, but if it's something that you're liking, you could start those creative juices flowing, thinking what in your home you could give a makeover to. What do you think of this little guy? I've seen a lot of these really beautiful woodland, almost Christmas trees to be used for display, like tabletop Christmas trees, and I wanted to try and create my own. And I'm just using, this is just some of the reindeer moss that I'm going to cut up into some really small pieces. I'm just using a cookie sheet here to kind of contain the mess. And then even after I cut it, I'll cut it even more, just really, really fine that you want this. Now I'm just taking one of these Christmas tree forms that you can pick up at any craft store. Dollar Tree has some smaller ones that you could use. And rather than using hot glue, I just use some of the Beacon's craft glue. And I'm just going to kind of roll this into that reindeer moss that I cut and cover the entire tree. I just work in small sections, and you can see here I will go back in and trim it so it's not so bushy around the edges, and so that way it's kind of a nice sleek form. You can see this is what it looks like once I get all of the tree covered, and it took me 3 bags of the reindeer moss to cover this. Now this is a bag of potpourri I picked up from Hobby Lobby. It has some beautiful pine cones in it, but it has the most amazing smell. And you can see here all of the different pieces. I kind of categorized it so I knew what I was working with. Now I made a kissing ball last year doing this exact same technique, and it was wildly popular. And it was so fun, and the scent that it brought into my home, the beautiful potpourri smell, was amazing. So I thought it would be fun to kind of have another piece that I could put on display to have as you walked by, get that beautiful smell. So I'm just going to put some pine cones on here, just using hot glue. Now that I've got the reindeer moss all the way around that styrofoam, you're going to be okay to use the hot glue and not melt your cone or your form here. So I just put one little one up at the top, so I knew that was just the perfect size. And then I take my bigger pine cones and I start at the bottom, and I'm just going to work my way up. And you're just going to sporadically glue these on. There's no real rhyme or reason. You're just kind of working with the bigger pine cones on the bottom and working up to smaller pine cones at the top of your cone, the tree form. And it's going to look something like this here. So not the prettiest yet, but you can kind of see what I'm going for. Now to get some of those little glue webs that you get, the little strings, I just use my heat tool to kind of melt those away. So now there's these little like chestnuts, I'm gonna guess that they are, maybe, I don't know, these little pieces that are in the potpourri. I'm going to sporadically glue those in as well. So depending on what kind of potpourri you use, or you find you may or may not have these pieces, so this would be totally optional, or you could use something else. And then I just have a lot of other greenery. These are just some picks from Dollar Tree, Michael's, Hobby Lobby, JoAnns, just a bunch of different Christmas picks that I have. You can even see to the right, one of them is a wreath that I have that I really liked the color of the greenery on. And I'm just going to glue this in all of those open areas here. So I will just stick a skewer in, make a little hole in that styrofoam. I will use some hot glue on the end of my pick to help stick it in there. It will kind of melt that styrofoam as you stick it in, but that helps it get a really good hold once that completely dries in there. These are very, very sturdy, and it's going to store really well. And as I was making this, I had my kids, like a couple of them came downstairs, and the first thing they were like, what is that delightful smell? Like they could smell the potpourri even from just walking in the room from working with this. So it's just such a fun way to bring a good Christmas scent into your home and have it be, just kind of a secret. Like nobody knows where it's really coming from, that you glued potpourri to a tree. Every once in a while, go ahead and set your tree up and kind of spin it around, look at it from different angles and see if you've got any holes anywhere, and just make sure that you're keeping that traditional like triangle shape of the tree so that you're putting your bigger pieces of greenery at the bottom. And as you work your way up to the top, they're gradually getting shorter and smaller. So that way you just keep and you don't compromise the form of that tree. So you keep that shape. And I just kind of will spin this around and look at it. You can see down to the right, I cut some of my pieces really small to stick in there, but you can make this as full as you want, which I suggest doing because it's absolutely beautiful, the fuller that these are. And you can see there are some wispy little different kind of picks that I've put in there that do kind of stick out a little bit further, and that's totally fine. I suggest doing that. But for the most part, you're just wanting to keep your generalized shape of that tree. But oh my gosh, you guys, look at how beautiful this is. If you find these on Pottery Barn's website or even Kirkland's website, they're hundreds of dollars. They're so expensive. And here you've made a beautiful one that not only looks beautiful, but smells amazing. I think this would be such a fun piece to have to put out at the beginning of your Christmas decorating season, your holiday decorating season, and have it up all the way through winter. It's going to last all season long, and I think this is just beautiful. What do you guys think of this one? I recently went to a craft show and saw this booth that had all of these different beautiful ornaments, and there was this very beautiful rustic star, and I wanted to kind of replicate that. Now I found this tree topper. It's like a mini tree topper from Walmart, and I'm just removing the little spring that you would use to put it to the top of the tree. And I loved the kind of wicker that was on here. I'm not exactly sure what this is, if it's like reed or if it's wicker or what, but it had a really good tone to it, and I just am using my little wire cutters there to get that sharp piece off, and that way I don't have that. And I'm thinking in my head like, oh, I can use this spring for something else. So as a true crafter, I just set it aside for another project. Now I'm just using some antiquing wax just with a brush here to cover up this. It's a beautiful color the way that it is, but I really wanted it to have a more dark feel to it, as like a dark wood or bark of a tree or something like that. So that's what I'm going for here. So I just cover the entire star front and back, and then I wipe the excess back with a paper towel or a baby wipe. And if there's anywhere when you do this that it moves the wicker around, I just go back in and touch it up. I take just some fencing wire that I have from our farm, and I make just a little loop with it and stick it through one of the ends of the star here to be the top of the star. And this is what I will be able to use to hang the ornament with. Now, I had a sign a couple of videos ago that I made another Christmas sign out of, but it was a 4th of July sign, and I took these metal stars off of it, set them aside, and I thought it would be perfect to kind of make these have a little rust look. Now, I'm just stippling some antiquing wax on these and then using my heat tool to dry it to get that little rusty look. But I mean, there's several different techniques that you could do, or you could just leave it silver. I just wanted it to look like it was aged a little bit more and not have quite that stark shine. And I just used some hot glue, and I'm going to place this just right on the front of the star. I really feel like one of the fun parts of making your own ornaments is you can dig into your stash and use some things that you have. You can embellish it to really make it your own, so you can see a piece of inspiration as you're out shopping or scrolling through the internet and think what you can do to make it match your home and your decor using what you have. And I think that's so fun. So I'm just using some little bits and pieces of some picks that I have Christmas wise, and then I have this cute little, it's almost like little sticks and these pine cones. And I was originally just taking these off to use the pine cones, but as I was using my cutters to cut them off, I thought it might be kind of fun to have a couple pieces of the little sticks as another little texture to add to the top of this star. I just take my base, which is this little pine bough that I have here, and I'm not even sure what kind of pine this is, so I apologize that I don't know the names. I know there's several different types. It's just a pick that I had a bunch of little pieces of, but I go ahead and put a line of glue and glue those little sticks onto there, and then I have this little like almost sugary coated, silvery colored leaves that I have that I add to it, and I do two exactly the same, and then I put them together in the middle, so that way they're symmetrical on either side. Hopefully you can see what I'm talking about I have the exact same pine bough on each side, done the exact same, and then I'm going to place this onto the top of my star once the glue dries. So I just add a little dab of glue at the top there, and then I will place this down and hold it until it dries, and then I will go back in and add the little pine cones. You can add as many or as little. I mean, you go ahead and make this your own. You're having it match your decor. I do end up putting a little bow on the top of here, but you could easily leave it like this. But you guys know that I absolutely love bows, so let's go put one on here. I have this birch ribbon that came from Dollar Tree, and I didn't do much with it last year. I think I bought it last year. I haven't seen it yet this year. Let me know if you guys have seen this yet in your Dollar Trees. But I didn't really know what to do with it. And this year I've used it in a couple of projects and I'm loving it. So I certainly hope I get to find some more. But you can see it's kind of papery. So I was able to tear it in some strips there to do a thinner bow because I didn't need that huge thick ribbon on there for this little ornament. So I just tie it like this. I just tie like a little shoestring bow and put a little bit of glue on that. I just felt like that birch ribbon really brought that woodsy feel into this, and it was really what it needed. Again, the bow's totally optional, but I really think it makes this look cute. I really love how this ornament came out. I think it's beautiful, and it definitely has a rustic and woodsy vibe to it. I think it's going to be beautiful on my tree, or even just hanging somewhere else that you might have something that you use to hang from like a peg on a shelf or something. I would really like to know if you guys liked how this ornament turned out. Do you guys like making ornaments for your tree? I love having some that are handcrafted because it really means so much more. I would like to thank you so much for joining me for today's compilation video. I hope that you enjoyed all of these DIYs. If you had a favorite, let me know down in the comments. I always love to hear which ones you guys like the best. Thank you so much for watching today. I'll see you next time. Happy crafting! If you liked the video that you just saw and you want to keep crafting together, here's another video that you might enjoy. And as always, remember to like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.